Of course, I'm very happy to be here, but I wanted to support with some slides, if possible. Actually, I'm planning to become 130 years, talking about aging. That should be possible within the next century, so I'm really hoping. I have to slim down, my wife said, in order to do so. But aging is really an issue that is concerning a lot of people nowadays, and we're moving up, and the number of centennials in Japan are really a good example already. Okay, we are ready to start. Thank you very much. Well, I'm very pleased to be back again here in Africa, and as chairman of this program, I'm really happy to also outline a bit on the key topics we're going to discuss these next 2 days. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, apart from all this discussion on innovation, when we are at home or around us or at work or we have national meetings or we discuss in the United Nations, we always have discussions on developments and also about our many differences. And we try to overcome these differences, and we quarrel and we fight over them a lot. But ladies and gentlemen, we are all astronauts, and soon we will leave Earth. We then look back at this beautiful planet you can see here, and you see this thin surface of the life we have on Earth, a blue eye in the darkness. And then we realize and understand the vulnerability of our being in an immense universe. You know, when astronauts come back from a short or longer trip in space, they all have one desire. Their mission is, how can we preserve this beautiful place, and how can we build jointly a sustainable and fair society, a warm and safe place for all? But ladies and gentlemen, reality is tough and quite different. Half of the world has to live on less than $2.50 per day. The poorest 40% of the world's population accounts for 5% of global income, and the richest 20% accounts for 3/4 of world's income. More than 80% of world's population lives in countries where income differentials are even widening. So how can we bridge these gaps and secure a fair deal for all? That's the question. We then see people fleeing for poverty and wars from the Middle East, from Africa. We see ships crossing the seas, filling the oceans with bodies. We see the long marches of desperate people in search of safety and a better standard of living. And there, where we had torn down this last wall in Berlin, we are now constructing new ones all over the world, in Europe, in the US and Mexico, in Latin America. The only wall that astronauts could see from space is the Chinese wall. But ladies and gentlemen, soon we will see many more. And this is the year 2016. Well, ladies and gentlemen, is there any hope? If humans are able to monitor the weather conditions at Jupiter at 4,200 kilometers from the surface, why couldn't we organize decent education via our satellites on Earth? At this moment, about 72 million children of primary school age in the developing world were not in school. 57% of them were girls. How can we expect them to understand financial services, savings for pensions, when they grow older? Africa is the second largest and second most populous continent on Earth. Estimated population at this moment, 1.2 billion people. It doubled already in size in the past 27 years. 54 countries make up the continent of Africa, and while population growth is relatively low in some areas, countries like here in Nigeria and Uganda are increasing at an advanced rate. 41% of the African population is under the age of 15, a young generation. With improving life expectancy, as discussed, the expected growth in populations is immense, making Africa the home of half of the world's population towards the end of the century. A huge challenge for the next 3 to 4 generations to realize a solid base of social security, healthcare, and a base but adequate pension provision. At World Pension Summit, we will discuss many aspects of realizing awareness, understanding, and commitment to action in order to improve financial inclusion needed for future generations. And ladies and gentlemen, it all starts with education at grammar school. In my feeling, the topic personal economics should be embedded and reflected in every topic at school, making young adults aware of family budgeting, the need for savings, and prepare them for periods without income, for instance, due to flex work, of periods of unemployment, or, of course, eventually old age. With improving economic developments, we see a growth of middle-class families in Africa. With that, we do see more people saving more, and also considering pension plans. There are still big differences among African nations, given the economic conditions. But looking at the future, Africa is bound to be a leading player in the world, as more and more people and families will prosper. Governments should put policies in place to fight the vulnerabilities of the middle class in order to benefit from their support. Policies should promote upward social mobility, such as education, and provide safety nets that protect the most vulnerable segments when facing life risks. Think about unemployment, old age, disability, and of course parenthood. Actually, the middle class forms the engine of the economy. With more people saving and adding to long-term pension funds, a new funding source for key domestic and regional developments could evolve. Considering a solid base together with a well-balanced risk management, pension funds can contribute and even be a catalyst to essential investments in domestic and regional infrastructure. In my view, parts of Africa, not in the least Nigeria, could be the greenhouse for agriculture, so an essential source and player for the world's food demand. In our track sessions, we will discuss the investment opportunities and directions with all the experts present. And I know Nigeria is, of course, facing a severe recession now. And I know that oil in your country was a gift from God. But we need more pillars to make a stable economy. And having Mark Zuckerberg visiting Nigeria, he didn't join you to enjoy the food. He was here because he saw the enormous amount of talent in this country on ICT and technology. We see the financial services industry bloom. We see the potential of agricultural business. So there is a lot of hope and prosperity to gain. And I think this recession will be overcome, and you will find a perfect new, an outstanding new starting point with a blooming economy in the future. Pension plans and schemes cannot be copied one-on-one. The larger portion of the workforce in Africa is self-employed. It's the informal sector, the carpenters, hairdressers. Lots of professionals who need to plan their daily income and secure savings for time, they do not have sufficient work and thus income. Saving for pensions does require flexibility and empathy with their specific situation. And it's good to see how PENCOM facilitates this group in Nigeria, a case of which many African countries can learn from, but also the developed nations, for instance, in Europe. I'm from the Netherlands, and in Holland we are a small country. We have about 9 million people employed and working. In the past 10 years, about 2 million are self-employed nowadays. But they are not linked to a service, and they are not linked to the standard pension programs that's being offered by their employers. So it's still a huge challenge, even in Holland, to embrace that part of the working society. And let's be honest, we quite often look at Europe as an example, like Denmark, the Netherlands, the UK, for their pension systems. But in Europe, from the working population, just 20% really has a funded pension system or a funded pension solution. 80% of the working force just can count on a base social security or a first pillar solution offered by the government, which is quite insufficient for the pension needs. So still a lot of work to do in Europe as well. For many, pensions might be a bridge too far, and important is the awareness and understanding to save, of course. Even at low income levels, it's important to create programs to stimulate savings. Without banks, but with smartphones, as Erica already mentioned, like an ATM or a service point with agents in villages in the rural areas. Rolling out a standard but very siloed banking or insurance infrastructure is not really needed. Smart fintech solutions pave the way to a new era of saving for short-term and long-term, and thus for micro-pensions. We will discuss a lot about professionalizing our pension practices. We need to learn from international best practices and need to learn also from our construction failures in the past. That's why we and PenCom organized this unique exchange amongst the professionals. We discuss scheme developments. Today and tomorrow we discuss regulation, administration, investments, client services and product development. We all try to bring about the best, and in the long run it's about a very important component, and that is of course trust. I do not have to explain that when people save, they rely on you as a bank or insurer or a government or a pension fund as a trusted partner to safekeep their money as a pension saving. Trust is actually the only thing you can offer in return. And you know, building trust comes from the experience. And as you have proven to deliver, as promised, time after time, it's trust, until it's not proven that way and the promise is broken. But ladies and gentlemen, we live in times that are changing fast. I never dreamt of sleeping at the home of a stranger, and now it's called Airbnb. I never stepped into a car I didn't know, which was a taxi, and had no reputation or didn't know the driver. Today we have Uber. Or lend money to a complete stranger without any reference. It's called peer-to-peer lending. Well, we all do this today, and massively as well. And why? Because others say so. Reputation has moved to a virtual world of recommendations. Your neighbors, your friends, your family, they are trustworthy people, and they should know and advise you and recommend. Today also your reputation is going viral and will be judged every second online. Big impressive buildings like from banks and insurers are no longer hiding places. They do not impress anymore. This creates new opportunities, as you also can create new entries and platforms and create endorsement in a really fast manner. But key will be total transparency and continuous open communications with your clients and peer groups, and of course society. And we like to think that transparency is simple, but look at this 4 years promise by Obama. We know what happens when the trust chain is broken. It's very hard to repair, if even not possible. I do not need to remind you, pension is long-term and trust is key. Ladies and gentlemen, I just highlighted a few topics of our program. World Pension Summit Africa has much more to offer. And please have a look at your detailed program on the app or in the printed version. And please let us know your feedback on the program so we can prepare next year's edition again. We are open for your comments and your ideas to build better programs for years to come. I do really appreciate your feedback. I wish you all a very enjoyable conference. Thank you very much.